So, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Adam Chirinos. Thank you all for joining this evening's webinar called How to Land a New Healthcare Client via LinkedIn in 90 Days or Less, with the presenter, Adam Franklin, who I'll introduce shortly. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to mute everybody. There's quite a lot of people on. Okay. We've got 4 learning goals today. So this is going to be a real kind of hands-on practical webinar. This is going to help you get your LinkedIn profile up to speed so you can attract the ideal clients. It'll help you develop a process to identify future ideal clients, develop an outreach plan to connect with ideal buyers, and you're going to walk away with a 5-step nurturing system so that you can move prospects from new connections all the way through to contracts. A little bit about Health Launchpad and myself, in case you're new to the organization. By way of introduction, I'm a health tech sales and marketing guy. For the last 10 years, I was running a company called Unify Health, which I actually founded a precursor company. We sold communication systems to big healthcare systems like Hackensack, Meridian Health, and Baycare, and places like that. And prior to that, I spent a couple of decades in the wonderful world of marketing, working with huge organizations like Bank of America and Dell. Now, I founded Health Launchpad earlier this year, and I did it because I saw a need that I'd frankly suffered from when I was running my own company, and that was the feeling of kind of not really having other people like myself I could go to for help. And so I created this to do 3 things. First of all, to create a place for people in healthcare sales and marketing to connect with each other. So that's called Connect. It's a place to learn. So, we create a lot of content. Tonight's webinar is one example of that. And then, what pays the bills is I have a consultancy to help you grow, which is, I'll help you get customer insight. I'm working on with several clients on helping them develop their account-based marketing strategy, and then we do lead generation campaigns as well. And so I mentioned Health Launchpad Connect. This is our community that's exclusively for people in healthcare sales and marketing. We started it a few months ago. It's already up to 195 members. Seems to be 5 to 10 members join every day. It's a place for you to network. It's a place for you to get help and feedback and hopefully explore new career opportunities. And we do this, we manage it in a couple of ways. We have a Slack group, but we also do things like we have these exclusive collaboration sessions, which are sort of networking sessions that focus on a particular topic. So if you're not already a member of Health Launchpad Connect, I'm going to put the link in the chat a little bit later on. Or you can just go to healthlaunchpad.com and you can just click on the Connect link and you'll be able to sign up. So enough about me, enough about this Adam. Let's move on to the Adam star of the show, Adam Franklin. So Adam is a truly awesome guy. He's a digital marketing expert. He's the CEO of his own company called Blue Wire Media. That's been in digital marketing for, I think, 10, 15 years. His specialty of late is on LinkedIn marketing. And in fact, he's almost exclusively dedicated now to being a LinkedIn marketing coach. He's also a keynote speaker and an author of a really fantastic book on digital marketing. I've been working with Adam for a little under a year. And I've learned more from Adam in that time than I had in the previous 15 years of playing around with LinkedIn. You know, if you've never done a LinkedIn course, you're going to like today, because I think it's going to give you a good framework. If you have done some LinkedIn training, what I like about Adam is that he has a technique which sort of is focused on developing really real relationships, meaningful relationships. It doesn't feel as spammy as some of the other courses. In fact, it doesn't feel spammy at all, which other courses I think tend to be. And so I think that you'll walk away with a sort of a really useful framework and some tools to sort of help you get down the path and improving the way that you're generating business through LinkedIn. So with that, I'm going to hand over the baton to Adam. So how do I do that? I'll stop sharing. I think that's what I'll do. Okay. And so Adam. Oh, Adam, there you go. Stopping sharing.
There we go.
There we go. And so Adam, all yours.
Thanks for that introduction, Adam, and welcome everybody. My name's Adam Franklin, as Adam Chirinas has kindly pointed out. And today I'm going to show you how to land a new healthcare client via LinkedIn in the next 90 days. Now, there is a workbook that's available for you as well. I'm just going to type the link into the chat, but we'll email it to you afterwards as well. Now, this is unlikely to be your first Zoom rodeo, but the way I like to run these Zoom meetings is, firstly, if you could just look at that Zoom toolbar, you will notice that there's a mute button. You're currently muted, so that's good. Let's keep it that way for now, but there will be opportunities to unmute and share insights if you want to, as we go through the workshop today. Second thing is, it's really enjoyable if we can see each other's faces. There's a lot of energy that way. So unless you're driving or you're really uncomfortable flicking on the video, what I would love you to do is go down to that video button and turn the video on for me. That way I can see your smiling faces. There we go. Now just point to the lens of your camera for me, please, like this, just so we know where it is, and then give us a wave so I can see you all there. Okay, hello, nice to see you all. Third step of the Zoom prep, what I'd love you to do is actually just to go down to the participants button, and what we're going to do is just rename ourselves. So what you'll see is the option to hit the more drop down, and then let's just make sure that our name is first name, last name, because sometimes people log in and like Adam's iPhone, and then I don't know who you are. So if you could just rename yourself, that would be super. There's a few people logging in on their phones as well. Just helps me know who's who. So that would be much appreciated. For the best experience, it's probably worth going speaker view and full screen. That's in the top right-hand corner. You'll see a dot, dot, dot sometimes, and you can drop down from there. All right, and then finally, you'll see the chat button down the bottom. So if you could just now go and click that and open up the chat and let me know where you are tuning in from this evening. I'm in Brisbane, Australia, and it's actually Wednesday morning for me. Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, Houston, Portland, Stamford, Rhode Island, South Florida, BC, LA, Washington State. Awesome. We have a great mix of locations here. Okay, Adam's already laid out the agenda. We're going to keep the trains running on time. Adam's kindly given me an introduction as well. So let's begin. I would love for you to please let me know what your role is. So we're talking healthcare today, but I would love to know specifically what your role is. If you could type that in the chat, I would really appreciate that. Okay, we've got a VP of Sales, CEO, Corporate Development, Strategic Business Development, CEO, VP Growth. Okay. Wonderful. Thanks, folks. Now, because there's so many people on the call and lots of chat going on, we do have time for questions, and I may take them as we go. So if you do have a question, what I would request you do is just put the letter Q in those square brackets when you do type it in. That way, when I'm scanning through and when Adam's scanning through, we can identify the questions so we can come and make sure that we answer them for you. And if there are any insights that you would like to share with the group and you would like me to unmute you so you can share that, just type share in square brackets so that we know to call on you to share what's going on. Okay. I'd love to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective do you feel you are on LinkedIn right now? So 1 is really beginner, newbie. 10 is, knocking it out of the park. 5's okay, 5, 4, 3, 9, great, James. 6, 3, 5, okay. Fantastic, fantastic. And final question before we get right underway. What is a new ideal client worth to you in, say, fees for commissions for 12 months or the sale price? 100 grand, 100 grand plus, 60, 500, 100, 250, 200. Okay, so we're talking high value sales here. 150, 100, 250, 350, 65. Awesome, awesome. LinkedIn is going to be a very, very powerful platform for you if we're talking high value, high trust sales, like the figures you're typing into the chat there. Okay, so we're obviously in a pandemic time at the moment, and while social distancing has caused a drop in people out and about, internet traffic has surged up 70% around the world, and social media usage has jumped a whopping 22%. Now that includes LinkedIn. So whilst we're not able to be out and about pressing the flesh as much, it has opened up a big opportunity to be doing the equivalent through our digital profile, particularly LinkedIn, particularly using our phone and laptop. Now, as BDMs, as CEOs, as healthcare specialists, what I notice is that a lot of consultants or BDMs, we often want to get over this consistency line. So consistency of lead flow and consistency of having a pipeline and consistency of closing deals. So what my goal today is to help you get over, give you the tools and the scripts and the frameworks to get over that consistency line. Because when we're underneath that line and we're nearly consistent, things can just be a little bit stressful at times, and we're not quite sure where the next deal's coming from or how we are going to fill the pipeline. So that's my goal today. What we learn today is only going to make a difference when you actually implement. So it's all well and good to come and listen, but if we don't actually take action, the future is possibly going to be a downward trajectory. But with the tools, with the frameworks, with everything that we teach you today, my goal is to put you on the path of good results or great results. And it all depends, it all comes down to how much you take action, and that requires 20 minutes a day committed to this activity. So with that, let's jump in and have a look at your LinkedIn profile, because if we can optimize this to attract your ideal future clients, this is the first step of using LinkedIn as a business development and marketing system. So if we think about your LinkedIn profile, let's just do a quick self-assessment. We use a traffic light system. I want you to think about your own profile. Is it a red traffic light? So pretty basic, lacking in most areas. Is it amber? It's okay, but there's lots of room for improvement. Or is it green, fully up to date, and you're putting your best foot forward? So just drop that in the chat for me, folks. Let me know where you feel you are at with your LinkedIn profile, and then we're going to get it to green. Some basics, a lot of greens, okay. Let's yellowish, yep, mostly green, yellow, amber. Okay, all right, so let's let's jump in. There's a few features of a LinkedIn profile that we really need to focus on. The first is we've got the opportunity to have a custom URL across the top there. There's obviously the headshot, which is this bit here. There's a resource I'll share with you soon, so that if you want to crop it and put the circle around and make it stand out a little bit more, then you can. These days we've got the option to record our name so people know how to pronounce it properly if we've got a name that people sometimes struggle with. But when we look at the LinkedIn profile above the fold, the most important real estate is this part here, which is your headline. Now, this is important because firstly, people will often be searching up here for certain roles and descriptions. And if your profile uses those words and matches up to that, there's a much higher chance that you will be found by the right types of people. But most importantly, we want to be using language that your buyers or your future clients use. So you may well be the CEO of some obscure named company, which is meaningful to you. However, it's probably worth using language that your clients use more frequently as the starting point, and then moving to the fact that you're, the CEO of this particular company. All right. What I do recommend also, because we're very visual, is to use Canva to create a background banner. Because we're visual, if we can reiterate the words from our headline here and use them as text over a graphic, then this really enhances the first impression people get of us, because they're seeing it in the graphic and they're seeing it in the headline as well. So that's the most important real estate there, the headline. So just nod if that's making sense so far. Some of the people that have said green before, that won't be a huge surprise, but there's nearly always ways that we can just tweak it and optimize it. And when we keep an ear out for the language that our prospects and clients are using, we can maybe factor those words in. If there's enough room, and there should be, I also like to encourage you to have a value statement at the end. So I help this particular type of company or a team, might be a senior executive, healthcare system team, achieve whatever result it is that you help get them to. Andrew, your question, how do you add text to the background? There's a free tool called canva.com that Adrian's just put in the chat, and I've got a resource that'll sort of guide you through how to do that. Now, the next part, as we scroll down a LinkedIn profile, which is the next most important piece of real estate on your profile, is the About section. Now you'll notice here that there's only 2 lines that appear before we have to click the See More button. And whilst we've got 2,000 characters to work with, the first 2 lines are super, super important, because we want to convey to our ideal future clients how we help. So I would encourage you to think about that value statement and push that right to the top. I also like to use formatting like arrows or capital letters there, so when people scan it, they can see it in more detail. So when we actually click on that See More button, what it does is it opens up this whole area. And this is where we've got 2,000 characters to explain to people who we are, how we help, what our specialty is. And so what I encourage you to do is, a lot of people see their LinkedIn profile as like their online resume, and they only update it when they're looking for a new job. And that's all well and good, but once you're in the new role, we need to kind of change it so that it's client focused, so that we can be filling our pipeline and looking to win more clients. So underneath that initial value statement, what I encourage you to consider is being very clear as to who you help and your ideal future client. The reason for this is we want people to be able to identify or self-identify with, okay, are we a good fit? Is this somebody that's speaking my language? And so if you can think of 5 to 10 bullet points that clearly define your ideal future client, could be a description of the company size, the executive teams that might be in charge of making that decision, and how your product or service or device specifically helps them. So that's the most important part, because when people see it, they go, okay, all right, John or Darcy or Sue, they sound like somebody that knows my world and could help. I then just, you've got quite a bit of room to move here. So there's other aspects of your role that you can flesh out a little bit in this about section as well. Okay, any questions so far? Just let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I'll keep pushing through it. But this featured section, which used to be known as media, but it's now called featured, is a really nice way to make your profile stand out visually a bit, and also share some of your, what I would call flagship content. So you might have some particularly useful videos, articles, PDF downloads, case studies that help your ideal buyers learn a bit more about you. And so you can add those to this section here and feature them so that you're putting your best foot forward with your LinkedIn profile. All right, so I do have a guide that you can download. That there's no opt-in, this just takes you straight there. bluewiremedia.com.au for the LinkedIn profile checklist. Maybe Adam T, you might pop that link in the chat to make it easier for peeps. LIPC, LinkedIn profile checklist. We've also got the LinkedIn headshot guide. So this gives you a bit of a guided tour through Canva and another tool to crop around your head, do any sort of fancy graphic type of edits you would like to make. So that's LIHG, LinkedIn headshot guide. Okay, Sue, great question. I'll come to that very shortly. And there's also a template for refining your LinkedIn headline. So whatever it is now, the activity would be to look at that, read it, off your profile, and then follow the framework of putting your main thing in language that your buyers use. Then you can put the role that you have at the company, and then the value statement. I help healthcare systems or hospital CIOs achieve this. And then simply just do the new version and update your LinkedIn profile.
Hey, ads. What was that? What on that LinkedIn profile checked? Is it LPC or LIPC?
Okay, so it is LIPC.
All right, there you go. All right, I'll put it back up again. Sorry, guys.
Because the LPC, I think, is a different one.
Yeah, no, you get a 404.
Oh, LIPC. And that's a good time for Sue's question. What about LinkedIn page for your firm, not just for you individually? Great question. So Sue, a LinkedIn company page is awesome. Like, it's a nice to have, particularly when you're in a bigger organization. And what it does is it gives the organization an opportunity to house a lot of the content on that company page, and then employees or team members can then share that content easily to their own personal profile. So that can sometimes be good, because if the company's got style guides or PR guidelines as to what people can share, if it's on that company page, individuals can very easily share it. but you'll tend to find that you'll get significantly higher engagement and interaction using your personal profile as opposed to the company profile. Okay, we'll get to your question, David, shortly. So we've got these action item capture cards. So if as you go or you're reviewing the workbook, just to make it easy so that you can take action on this stuff, I've just set it up so that you can take a strategy that maybe you've learned today, break it down into some action items, and then how much effort you think that'll take, and then how much money you think that might save you or make you. All right, so now let's look at the second part. All right, David's question. My biggest bugaboo, grey generic company logo. Your advice to past companies we've been with. I might need you to just expand on that a little bit, David, not just to clarify exactly what you mean there. All right, finding your ideal clients on LinkedIn in your first, second, and third degree networks. Again, let's do a quick self-audit. We'll do the traffic light system. When you think about your network on LinkedIn right now, it would be a red if most of these sound familiar. You've got under 500 contacts, average quality, not many ideal future clients, and a pretty weak relationship with them. Amber or yellow or orange, under 1,000 contacts, okay quality, some future clients, reasonable relationship. And green, 2,000 plus contacts, good quality, many ideal future clients, and a good relationship. Okay, nice to see some greens, a lot of ambers and yellows. Okay, and a few reds. That's all good too. So thank you for sharing that. To give it some context, if we think back to the olden days, or certainly pre-pandemic days and back in the day type of stuff, we had different options for networking, for business development opportunities. And one of those was going to events, whether they're networking events or business functions or what have you. But you may remember some of the challenges with those. So if we had like networking events, and even though I don't like that phrase, networking, we had networking events. Now, if you think back to some of those networking events, what comes to mind? You can let me know in the chat. They were very often hit and miss, hit or miss. Very often they're time consuming to get to. And you're never quite sure whether you would be speaking to the right people, or yeah, you might see 5 or 6 people in total. Exactly. They can work really well, of course. You meet old friends, make new friends. Absolutely. In-person events I do love. There's a lot of good with them. Free drinks, yeah. Couple of drinks on someone else's dime. No, there's benefit there. But they certainly, for the amount of time and effort you put into it, yes, you might make some great friends, perfect, but it can be time consuming. The other thing that used to happen and still does, but I recall it being a lot more prevalent, is buying databases. And I remember people would offer you, a list of all the CIOs in Atlanta, for about $10,000 or something like that, like huge dollars for a list of contacts, which I don't ever think that those people on the list had ever actually opted into or consented for their data to be shared, but they were very expensive and quite inaccurate. Quite a waste of time, quite frankly, waste of dollars. Yeah, absolutely. And often the email addresses would bounce, so out of date data. And even if it was up to date, they don't know who you are and they haven't opted into hearing from you. So that's very expensive. But really now we've got LinkedIn, which has a huge database of your ideal future prospects, ideal future clients, and it's available for free, and we've got instant access to it on our phone, and there's no cost to reaching out to say hello and introduce yourself. And I think sometimes we underestimate or take for granted what we have at our fingertips these days, especially compared to those other ways that are expensive, time consuming, and as you said, quite frankly, a waste. Very often a waste, not always, there's always exceptions. Now, if we think about our outreach opportunities too, like if we're trying to get in touch with the senior executives at these hospitals or healthcare systems, we could, drop in. Now, if you've done that, let me know in the chat sort of the strike rate of getting some FaceTime with your target prospect. If you drop in, you can call them up. But of course, you've got the gatekeepers there. And these are, again, quite time consuming and often a low strike rate. However, with LinkedIn direct messages, there's typically, very rarely, there's no gatekeeper. And high-level executives and doctors and everything else, they're remarkably accessible through LinkedIn. So that is it's almost like it's this pathway, direct pathway to them, which never existed before, and they haven't sort of put a gatekeeper in charge of managing their LinkedIn inbox. Okay, we'll get to these questions in a sec. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get our phones out and open up the LinkedIn app. I've got all these step-by-step instructions in the workbook so that you can refer back to it. Now, what I want you to do, you can either do it on your phone or you can follow along on the screen with me here. But say, for example, you are looking to build relationships with hospital CIOs. What we can easily do with LinkedIn, and this is the free version of LinkedIn, there are benefits to Sales Navigator, absolutely. You can do a much more detailed search and the process is the same. But what we can do here is we type in this search box at the top, the role of our ideal client, in this particular example, hospital CIO. Filter then by people. So that'll narrow that, this will bring the numbers down. Filter by location. So in this particular example, I filtered by the United States, but you can drill down to your state or your city if you wish. And then finally, you can filter down by industries and filter by hospital and healthcare. So for those playing along on their phone, I'll give you a moment to catch up, but not if that's making sense, that process of how to identify these people. Who's done that before, just by show of hands? People with their cameras on. Yep, you've done that. Okay, fantastic. So what this shows us here, there's 11,000 results. So that is, and then that's across the US. Your target market might be a little bit more specific than that, but it shows that there's a lot of opportunity on the platform. All we need to do is, now that we've identified them, work out how to get in touch with them. So we had here 11,000 results, and this was hospital CIOs. So if we just run the numbers to check, what the size of the market is here. And of course, you wouldn't just be selling to hospital CIOs. There might be a team of decision makers involved, maybe some of the doctors, maybe some of the other C-level executives, maybe some other decision influencers, even if they're not the decision makers. Our first time, yep, cool, Debbie. So we had 11,000 contacts there. So, I mean, you can obviously put in other lines in here. I'll just stick to one for now for the example. So there's 11,000 ideal future clients on LinkedIn if that is your ideal buyer. So let's run the numbers. We've got 11,000 people. Let's assume they're all second or third degree contacts, people outside of your network. When we send a connection request to somebody with a personalized note, and I'll share with you some scripts for that shortly, you could expect, give or take, a 30% acceptance rate. So if we run the numbers, 11,000 contacts, just doing this on my phone, times a 30% acceptance rate, that gives us 3,300 hospital CIOs in healthcare in the United States who realistically could become our first degree contacts once we've gone through the process of reaching out to them. So I would call them leads. And then if you also consider that about 1% of the market will be going ahead with a purchase decision for the product, service, software, device that you have to offer. They will be making a purchase decision in the next couple of weeks. It's about 1% of the market who are ready to buy and will be making that decision, whether you have a seat at the table or not. So that means that there are 33 ready to buy prospects out of that group that could be your first degree contacts. If you have a think about your sales conversion rate when you're in front of a qualified prospect, have a think roughly what that number is as a percentage and let me know in the chat, if you don't mind. But let's assume, okay, 12%, 20%. All right, so every five meetings we win a client, 20%. All right, perfect. Let's call it 20%. So then there's 33 prospects who are ready to buy. We have meetings with them, we put a proposal to them, and 20% of those say yes based on the percentages that you're telling me here. So that's 6.5, but let's just call it 6. 6 clients that we could be working with if we had a seat at the table and had nurtured them through this process. And let's just keep the numbers nice and round. Earlier you said that what the average deal size or average value of an ideal new client would be. So 6 times 100,000. Back of the napkin numbers here, we're talking $600,000 worth of opportunity. If you've run the numbers as we, if you've been playing along at home and you've run the numbers as to what you feel that sort of size of opportunity is, feel free to let us know in the chat. Now, I'm sure most of you will see that your own number and go, okay, LinkedIn is really a good place for me to be focusing attention. So that means we need now that we've identified that LinkedIn is 30% a realistic for C-level connections tied to a compelling invite message. Yep. Yes. I mean, maybe a tiny bit lower depending on the time frame that you're, giving them to respond. But if you give them 2 to 3 weeks to respond, yeah, 25, 30%. That's what I've been seeing with my coaching clients. Absolutely. Now that there's some different industries and sectors there. But yeah, you can expect to get a good response if your message is tailored to them. And I'll share with you what to do shortly. But also the most important thing is your profile and your headline. Because if your profile and that headline bit that we've talked about before is compelling and explains that value proposition and makes sense to that C-level executive, then that's going to increase your chances of the acceptance compared to if you have a poorly written headline. The headline is what most people, it's all they're going to see when they're making their decision. Do I accept Jeffrey or do I ignore Jeffrey? So that's why the headline part is so important. So if we were to get our phones back out and we were wanting to find the low-hanging fruit, what we would then also do is take that same search of hospital CIOs in the United States, in the healthcare and hospital system, and filter by connections. And we would filter by first degree connections. This is going to reveal the people who are already in your network who meet the criteria of being your ideal future clients. So Adam T has said, I'm getting 40% with VP, 40% acceptance rate with VP and C-level. With CIOs, I would expect lower, maybe 25 to 30%. If your experience is less than that, Sarah, yeah, just cut the numbers by half when you're running it on that sheet. If the CIOs don't accept your connection request after, say, a month, simply go into LinkedIn and withdraw that connection request. You'll have to wait, I think, maybe 2 months, and then you can send it to them again. Chances are they've been busy and your connection request has been buried under a whole bunch of other people's requests. So it's not like they've deliberately thought, oh no, I'm not going to connect with Sarah or Jeffrey or whoever. It's just that they probably haven't seen it. Do you need to share how you know them? Well, we don't know them yet, so I'll share with you a couple of scripts very shortly, Debbie. So yeah, if we then filter by first degree connections, this number will then be reduced to who's actually in your network already. So if we look at some scripts, so let's firstly look at the low-hanging fruit of the people in our network already. So there's two types of people that when you're looking through that list for yourself, there's a few people that you will actually know. Maybe you've worked with them in the past, maybe it's a contact, from another life or 10 years ago, like not what you'd call a warm contact, but what you would call a weak contact. But you do actually know them, they're not a complete stranger. So this is actually a framework that I use personally. So this is a real example out of my sent items in LinkedIn. And it's the framework that I want to share with you here. I've said, Thomas, long time mate, how's things with you? It's been a while since we crossed paths, probably at AWX many years ago. I'm back in Brizzy now after 7 years in Sydney. I actually wrote on Sydney by accident. What are you working on at the moment? So what you may notice here is that it is tailored specifically to Thomas. Nobody else, like if I got my VA to send this, there's no possible way he or she could know when I last crossed paths with Thomas. So he knows that it's definitely me sending it. It's not just a generic sort of spammy copy paste type of job. It's actually me because I've demonstrated that with this line here. I've got his name and I've called him by his name. But the rest of it, the other 80% is the same. So it's 80% the same, 20% tailored, personalized. I'll spell it with a Z. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. All we need to do is have a framework It's 80%, 90% the same, a few bits that we tailor to demonstrate that it's you and a personal message. Typos aren't the end of the world. It kind of shows a bit more that it's kind of real, although I don't do them deliberately. But things here, you might obviously change the language. If you wouldn't say the word mate, this is a guy that I knew and that's the language that I would use. So 80% the same, 20% tailored. So that is something that I would encourage you after this workshop to look at those first degree contacts and go ahead and actually send 10 direct messages to the people that you know in some respect, even if it was 20 years ago, because that's often where the magic happens. Sarah, great observation. So Sarah said, love the question at the end. It shows you're curious and invites a response. Absolutely. So one thing I'll quickly mention is that the emails that you send, or the DMs, direct messages that you send through LinkedIn or through email, they want to follow a SPEAR approach. Now what that stands for is short, personal, expecting a response. Because it's got to be conversational, a back and forth. It's not just you telling them everything you've been up to for the last 20 years and why they should buy your device and why they should book a meeting with you next week. It's a conversation. So the SPEAR approach is one that I highly recommend. Okay, so that's for first degrees. If we're looking to reach out to, in this case, hospital CIOs, here's some scripts that you might like to adapt and use yourself. And to answer the question before from Debbie, do you need to share how you know them? Look, if you do know them, for sure, that's really helpful. It's like, hey, Debbie, we crossed paths at a healthcare function. I think it was in Las Vegas in 2003. Long time, how have you been? But if you don't know them, here's some frameworks that you might like to try. Hi, first name, I'd love to invite you to my healthcare network. Or, secondly, hi, first name, your profile caught my attention when I was searching for hospital CIOs. I'd love to connect. Now, I've tried lots more thorough, detailed, like outreach messages, like, hi, Mary, I saw that you went to college in here, and then I saw that you moved to South Africa for 2 years, and I really like that article that you wrote on some medical journal. I'd love to connect. It's too much too quickly, even though it shows you've done your research. It's a little bit kind of stalkerish and heavy-handed. That type of stuff can come later. It's just like if we met somebody in person. You'd probably just go, hi, Debbie, nice to meet you. My name's Adam. Or I see you're a hospital CIO. Nice to meet you. We want to be replicating that in real life interaction. And another script that you might like to try, this is for dormant first degree contacts. So, you know, the people that you've connected with, you can't remember when, you've got no idea who they are, you've never met them, but they actually happen to be a hospital CIO in your network. And you've gone, oh, some low hanging fruit. What on earth do I say to these people? Well, you could say something along these lines. Hi, Jane, we've been first degree contacts on here for a long time, but I've never written to connect properly. I see you're at this hospital. What are you working on at the moment? As for me, I help hospital CIOs achieve these results, or I've been working with hospitals to do this. Let's keep in touch. Your name. So you're always asking a question to follow that SPEAR approach. You're expecting them to respond. So they are some scripts that you might find handy. What observations have you made as we've gone through those scripts? Or what feedback, what do you like or not like? What could you see working? Where are you going, oh, I don't think that would work for me. Let me know in the chat if you want me to unmute you and we can hear your thoughts. Type share. Otherwise, just let me know in the chat. And I do have a document called the LinkedIn Outreach Script Template. That's the link there. Adam Chirinas might even drop that in the chat for us. Okay, I usually add the number. Okay, I've been approached with these scripts. Damn, they work. They do. They do. Because it's following human nature. I usually add the number of connections we have in common. Yep, that works. Yep. I see we've got a bunch of, I see we've got 400 healthcare contacts in common. I'd like to invite you to my network. Keeping it short, love keeping it short. I was the stalker you mentioned. Nice one, Jarrett. Short and to the point, avoid stalking, agree the headline is key to me deciding to open an invite. Fantastic, Sue, thanks for sharing that. Can the question be more specific than at the moment? Of course. The question that you ask where we're expecting a response can be more specific than what are you working on at the moment. That's a very conversational, loose, open-ended one that I chose to use at the time. You could say something much more specific that might be a lot easier for them to answer. Yeah, you can definitely be more specific. It's just a framework, a suggested framework for you then to tailor to suit your needs, as long as you know why the bits and pieces are where they are so that you can adjust to suit. Okay, next question. I realise it is cultural to do, but do you address them by their names or play it safe by Miss, Mrs, Mr, Armando? I guess it depends culturally how you want to play it. I don't respond very well when people say, hello, Mr. Franklin, or dear sir. It just doesn't feel right. It feels spammy. However, if you're talking to a doctor or someone where you might feel more comfortable, or they might feel more comfortable calling them by their, with their, you know, I forget what that, what the word is to refer to that, but by calling them Mr., Mrs., Doctor, what have you, by all means. I personally don't, even if I am, generally speaking, if I am talking to doctors, I'll call them by their first name. Flattery, I was impressed by your background. Exclusivity, I'm reaching out to select leaders. Trying these now / lately, and we'll see if they work. Awesome, Sarah. Cool. Great observations. You've picked up on all the main parts that I wanted to convey there. And to bring it home in the last few minutes of power, and Adam's put some comments in the chat there too. The 5-step nurture system to convert these contacts to becoming high-value clients. So what not to do, don't just send the same message for 45 messages in a row for 3 years. That's what you probably come across. There was an example there. David's observation, in a quote, an approach could be, enjoyed your presentation on the XYZ meetup. Yes. Anything where you can identify something as a reason to reach out to them. Hey, I saw your report in the National Medical Journal, or I saw your video that you did on this. I really found it insightful, or I liked this particular part about it. Flattery, and it's got to be sincere. We're not here to manipulate. People can tell when you're being manipulative and inauthentic, but yes, flattery, sincere flattery will work. So really the 5 steps you want to take people through is know, like, and trust. Then we want them to raise their hand in some capacity, and then move on to a sales conversation. So this is the journey we want to take our contacts on. So we've talked a little bit about, you know, how to reach out to people. If we want people to like us, there's a few things. You've mentioned it already. Observing and complimenting them on something that is genuinely interesting to you, like enjoyed your presentation at the meetup. Then we move to a trust phase. This is often where we come a little bit unstuck because we have useful information that we might want to share with them. But the key is, rather than just sending it to them and saying, hey, Sarah, I think you'll find this PDF really useful, and sending it to them, we need to have a permission to proceed step. We need to say, hey, Sarah, I've actually got this checklist that my CIO, hospital CIO clients have found useful. Would you be interested in a copy? So that permission to proceed is the part that is crucial. Because if you just ram it down their throats, they're going to be like, I didn't ask for this, now it's more obligation, I've got to read it. And it's going to sort of bring the relationship and the conversation to a close. Once you've gone through the trust phase, allowing people to raise their hand is very important. We don't want to sort of feel like we're pushing them into a sales meeting or forcing them down this path. But again, we want some permission to proceed. You might say something like, hope you found that webinar resource book useful. I've actually been helping hospital CIOs with solve this particular problem. Is this something you would like my help with? Now they can say yes, they can say no thanks, they can say maybe later, or they can ignore you. But that question, is this something you would like my help with, isn't like over the top pushy or salesy. It shouldn't make people go, oh man, I can't believe that you're trying to sell me stuff. I can't believe you're trying to help me. How dare you? What it will do is give them a very elegant fork in the road to say, yes, I would like your help, or not yet, maybe later. So that's the 5-step nurture system. And there are some tracking metrics. We want to keep track of who we reach out to, how many connections we then have, how many conversations we're having, how many opportunities we have, and then how many clients we have brought on. And so if we're tracking the metrics across each of these, we then know that if I spend 20 minutes a day reaching out to 40 or 50 or 100 hospital CIOs or mid-level or the other decision makers on the team, I know that, you know, within 3 to 6 months or 3 months, I'm likely to have X number of clients. So if you want to keep track of those types of things, I have created an outreach activity tracker. It's a free download. Again, it opens up a Google Sheet. The link is there. And it's designed, probably not for you, you might get a VA to help, but you just populate it with people's first names, their LinkedIn URLs, their role, their company. And then, okay, have I sent message 1, message 2? So the script frameworks that we've spoken about, you would then save those scripts that you've landed on, save them to another tab on your spreadsheet, so that it's very easy to manage. This stuff does work. You do land meetings with the right people when you follow this approach. So that is top of the hour, 7 p.m. Eastern. Has today's workshop been valuable to you? On a scale of 1 to 10, just let me know privately or in the chat. Has that been useful to you? Very valuable, thank you. You're welcome. 8, 9, yep, 10. Awesome. And do you feel you now have the skills to do it with what you've learned today? It's a very high level snapshot. We moved through quite a bit of stuff. Fantastic. And is it worth spending 20 to 30 minutes a day to commit to this, given the size of the opportunity that is out there? Absolutely. Ready to start immediately. Yes, yes, yes. Fantastic. Now, before I hand back to Adam, that was a very condensed highlights reel of my half-day LinkedIn Accelerator workshop. If you felt like diving a bit deeper into this stuff, I do have the recordings available. If you wanted to, there's the workbooks, there's 4 sessions. It includes the recordings, the final notes and slides, a one-on-one coaching session with me, and 30 days access to my marketing club, where each month I give a live training on what to focus on and implement for that month. So it's usually $97. It's $1 US. If you're interested, there's a link there, bluewiremedia.com.au, 1-VIP, all spelled out in letters, ONE-VIP. Adam T might pop that into the chat for me. And Jeffrey, you can source my book. Yes, Amazon Amazon has it. I might look up a link and send that through to you, Jeffrey. Are you using a special program to highlight, etc., on your screen? Yes, I'm using my iPad as hardware, and I'm using a app called Notability. And then I'm using the Apple Pen to color in and everything. All right, thank you, folks. Back to you, Adam.
So thank you, Adam. I'm actually, having done your course and actually, done the full session, I'm just amazed that you could get through it in an hour. I will say though, it's like on a lot of the sections that sort of, that have a lot of nuance to them, like messaging, and then what messages you use at the 5 different steps. You need to spend more time with Adam to do that. And I think, Adam, I think what I'm going to do after this is Adam's got a special offer for everybody who would be interested in taking part, which I really encourage you to do. I've got my own business, but I don't do this for a living. And I, can't think of anybody better to help you with it than Adam. So, I would really encourage you to take part in it. And so I will send out an email afterwards with a recording for this webinar, but also, the links to all of the things that Adam mentioned, like the marketing club and the getting the recording to the 4-hour session, which is really worth it because you're going to get a lot more out of particularly the messaging and what you do at each one of the stages. Have I captured that right, Adam? Does that sound right? Yeah.
Yep,
okay.
100%.
Great. Yeah, that's all I have. Any questions? And there was a really interesting, actually, Ramesh said, we should sort of check back after 3 months and see how we're doing. What we might want to do is maybe set up a little working session, maybe a little networking group amongst ourselves to sort of work on it together. Be happy to do that. So maybe we could look into something like that. But again, thank you everybody for taking the time to join us tonight. And I hope, I get, it seems like it was very useful. I was pretty sure that getting Adam in front of everybody would be of value. I've certainly found it. So cool. Have a great evening, everybody. And the recording will be in your inboxes sometime tomorrow. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Let's give Adam a big
pleasure. Thank you, Adam. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah. Get silent.
See you later.